Hey, even
Hello.
good morning or good afternoon for you.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. You?
Good, good. When you can, I just have a question about the initiative that we talked the other day about the guac project and the supply chain initiative, but whenever you can there.
Um, what's the question?
Yeah, so I mainly wanted to make sure I basically got
Hmm.
the actual goal there, right? So I was doing some tests and all of that. Is the goal to basically assess the CNCF projects in the repos themselves, or what specifically?
Um, the goal is to be able to assess um, the shipped software, the basically what goes into the container images that's running on the
Okay.
cluster, um, which is probably some combination of some portion of the software in the CNCF repo. Some of it may be tests or scaffolding or so forth that it doesn't actually make it into the final container image, and potentially underlying container image contents depending on how the containers are built. Um, if you're building a container image and you've got OpenSSL, for example, coming in from the base library and you're linked against OpenSSL, then you know we should know about that from the SBOM as well.
Okay. So basically to see if we have any specific gaps between what's actually part of the artifact and listed as part of the SBOM.
Um, I mean, the goal is to be able eventually to be able to ask interesting questions like, um, if this project were to switch license from Apache to AGPL, or were to switch license from Apache to like a business source license, um, which projects, which containers that I'm running, which projects would be affected by that,
Okay.
before it happens, or you know, which projects having a vulnerability would be most impactful. So maybe everybody is using like Uber's Zap library, and so a 0 day in Zap would be, effectively a 0 day for all the software on the cluster. Um,
Yep.
and being able to figure out, okay, what are the top five, or top 10 dependencies in terms of overall impact to all the software running on the cluster is the hopeful goal. But so far, we've had trouble actually loading all of the information in to be able to ask any of the questions.
I see. Okay. Sounds good.
I notice we've got almost everyone here except Matt. Um, does anyone have updates they want to share? Matt has historically been doing a lot of the software lifting for this. And so I suspect to some extent we're waiting on him for a little bit of information. But if he's not here, we can do other stuff. Go ahead, Brett.
I was curious, kind of given light of some discussions around initiative timelines, have we like revectored it at all?
Mm-hmm.
Has this initiative like changed with regards to like what do we believe the deliverable is currently?
So we set a milestone 1 of, let's see, that's Victor. Okay. We set a milestone 1 of being able to answer those questions, those 2 specific questions, and then we were going to use those learnings to ask more questions. I do think that if we can't show substantial coverage of the software that's in the cluster, we may want to reconsider whether we can reach that milestone.
Got it. Okay, I see milestones mentioned a few times, and I assume that in the initiative, like TOC issue or description in the repo, I could probably find those milestones.
I believe so. We did check in a README, and we do have milestone 1. Yes.
Ah, yep, I just came across it as well. Okay, cool. So given this then, we need both the like ability to ingest data some way, shape or form.
Mhm.
However, we collect that and ingest it and do something with it. We also need the orchestration side. And Matt had not opted for Kubernetes. Is that correct?
Um, Matt had been trying to use a bunch of other additional tools and libraries, and some of those did not have Kubernetes Helm charts and so forth. And so he ended up using Docker Compose for that. I pointed out that there were probably lessons to be learned for CNCF there. But progress was worth capturing, even if it wasn't exactly the tools that we claimed we were going to use at the start.
Fair.
So I have an update from last week, and I just noticed that Victor joined. I attended the SPDX CRA weekly meeting, not last week, but the week before, where they're working on actually modeling compliance to specific regulations. And Victor can probably speak to this a little bit better than I can, being more familiar with the group. But I thought that if we do want to pursue the CRA angle here a little bit further, that could be an interesting collaboration. So I was going to keep attending those and reporting back. But yeah, that's just my main update.
I linked to the, what Matt currently had in the meeting notes. If you're curious, it's all here. But yeah, there's a bunch of speculative architecture there without a bunch of S-bombs to feed into it. So an S-bomb collector feels like the component that we really need that we don't have. I'm going to try to summarize as well. Matt started by looking for S-bombs in GitHub release artifacts. Then he went looking for S-bombs in CI tooling. And I don't think we've heard back further about how that worked out, but I think those are the main places that we've looked. I think one thing we haven't looked at is the OCI related feature for relating an S-bomb in an OCI registry to a container image.
Yeah, I like. I think that this would be maybe like a one way to make this like a really quick feedback loop for like given like one project, right? It could be one project, it could be one organization,
Yeah.
the CNCF, but right, like if you if you've met the requirements of hey, we already built our SBOM and we already placed that SBOM in OCI, like attributed to the artifacts, many artifacts even, then the OCI collector actually is pretty well set up out of the box. I know that that first dependency there is actually probably, as we've seen, more of a hurdle than would not be. But once you get over that hurdle, then and I think we should probably spend time on that front
You
end.
want to drop a link to that bit of software that you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm actually looking through the docs right now for Guac to find collectors information because I think there's interesting pieces here. But with the OCI collector, it works with the refers API and backwards with the polluting the tag space with the .sbom.
Okay.
And so again, if you've met that first hurdle of yes, we already do this and put them in OCI, then you could really reasonably say deploy the a Guac instance with the OCI collector pointed at a specific organization, and it would start ingesting them without you doing anything else. You don't have to spend the time collecting S-bombs and then manually uploading them. And so I think that could be one way to maybe highlight some good UX that's already built into Guac.
Is that possibly a reasonable link for people getting started?
I think if you were to map out one complete like end-to-end workflow,
Hmm.
you would need to do produce S bombs and correlate them to OCI artifacts. Step one. Step two, now deploy your Guac infrastructure and have it pre-pointed at that OCI location.
I guess I'm wondering, is the Guac Collect CLI the place, if someone else was looking to get started on this, is that the right bit of documentation they should look at?
I think so.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, I'm not requiring you to be absolutely correct, but if you're like, no, no, that's completely wrong, let's save everyone else the trouble of looking in the wrong place.
I think it is. I'm looking at like just one layer higher with regards to like orchestrating Guac deployments.
Yeah.
And in that, you could certainly use just like Guac collect and go through again the CLI invocation, etc. Um, but the OCI collector is already, you know, able to be orchestrated with the Helm chart alongside all
Mm-hmm.
the other Guac components. And what I think is really nice about that, because this is what I'm using with Zarf, is the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it's like it's already built in. You just enable it and then configure where you want it to look, and you can just Helm install, and it's already going to be like, oh, okay, my job here as this collector is to go and get those things and bring them into Guac without any manual intervention.
Yeah. Um, I guess if it's all working, that would be great. Um, if it's not, I wanted to make sure that we had a place where we could figure out like what our coverage was. Like, oh, hey, this gets 50% of the containers I've got on my cluster, or, this gets 10%. Because a lot of the existing stuff, we've done has gotten 10 to 20% coverage, which is um, not really enough to be able to say, oh, everyone should go do it this way. Because it's like, great, you got three weirdos. Congratulations.
Agreed.
Um, but if we can say, hey, half the world does this, or this works for half the world, then you can tell the other half of the world, hey, catch up with that first half.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
Like
why this
Kubernetes, for example, apparently has all its S bombs in a poorly documented, um, you know, cloud storage bucket somewhere that's not linked from anywhere else. So, like, clearly, we shouldn't tell everyone to do things the Kubernetes way, even though Kubernetes has, sophisticated tooling around all of this. Um, it's pretty clear that not a lot of people are actually ingesting that S bomb. So tooling is only part of the puzzle.
Yeah, I agree.
But if we can say, hey, look, every CNCF project except Kubernetes, behaves in this normal way, Kubernetes, like, get with the picture, that feels much more compelling.
Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking through like where is the referral happening here? Because like I think in most cases we're talking about distributed software that has an element being pulled in with Kubernetes. It's kind of a different combination of the problem. Which thing are you pulling? Are you actually pulling a mainstream Kubernetes, or are you
Yep.
like pulling managed versions
Yeah.
and other things that kind of complicates that? But yes.
Well, so our base discussion was Minikube or Kind.
Yeah.
So I believe both of those are using upstream Kubernetes by default.
Okay. Well then, yeah, I think when I look at milestone one, you want to be able to set up a Guac instance some way, shape, or form, right? That
Yep.
shape of that TBD, be able to ingest S bombs and answer some questions. I think those are fair. I think we keep coming across the common pattern though of like what do we need to step back and recommend that people do? Like what is the best practice here for sheer like make this meaningful?
Well, if we can show something that gets meaningful results,
Huh.
you know, on even, 50% of the software that's running in the cluster, say, um, I think that example of we did it this way, we got this much coverage gives you several avenues to, you know, go to move forward from that. On the other hand, if we can't show that you can get, 50% coverage or 30% coverage or something more meaningful than 10%, um, I'm not sure that any level of interesting questions matters. Jen.
Yeah, so like the question of coverage is interesting because how do you establish your inventory? That's like what's running, like would you say this is everything in the namespaces in my registry that I own? Like is that the way we're establishing coverage, or are we just saying like, okay, all of the workloads running and every image that's like being actualized by one of those workloads, is that my inventory? Because that makes coverage all the more
I mean,
difficult to establish.
I think if someone wants to set up Minikube with a simple sample like environment, we can use that as our baseline to do the coverage. And so you could say, okay, it's Minikube plus these 3 or 4 projects, for example, to start with. And then if we can show that that works, then we have a template where people can take that same thing, run it on their own cluster, and talk about what their coverage is.
I like the I really like that. I would say that I have some like fuzzy understanding myself with regards to Guac kind of being positioned for like broader organizational use of just where are all the S bombs and what
Mm-hmm.
are they, and let me do something with that versus coverage of a like running instance of a cluster. And I know there had been discussions with Guac, I want to say a month or two ago,
Mm-hmm.
about adding something somewhere to track like yes, this is running software versus not. And so all of that to say is like I think there's a line separating like some of those goals there, which are like how do you get Guac to focus specifically on coverage of a what's running in your cluster versus how do you orchestrate Guac to be your, enterprise query engine?
Well, I think an enterprise query engine is a great and ambitious thing.
Yeah.
But if you can't have a clean instance of Guac where you can just load the software from one cluster and answer questions, then there's no particular reason to think it will do the enterprise thing any better.
Yeah, I think my only like again fuzziness here is like how do you get Guac to filter between what is running and what is not? Because at some point you're going to point it at OCI and it's going to collect everything historically, right? It's going to go through, you could go through your org and be like, I'm going to pull all the S bombs.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be like, okay, great. I'm running a specific version of that. And so maybe you can craft some queries, but like out of the box. I don't know. I guess,
If
yeah.
we discover that Guac is over ingesting with the ingester, then yes, that's something we'll need to solve.
Yeah.
If we can give it, a specific list of images that are running in the cluster, then that feels like it might be another way to constrain it. But it looked like Tiago, did you have a no? Okay.
No.
Yeah, okay, never mind. That's fair. That's fair. I think, yeah, down filter by the version that you know is running. Guac's not going to have awareness that it's running, but you as the operator can correlate. I know that these versions are running. I'm going to query against this very specifically and get those results. That's fair.
And then if we have time, we can show more expansive and more, interesting stuff. But, our first goal was to show that the thing is alive at all. And if we can't show that, then like none of the other problems matter. And I feel like there is a valid complaint with some of this stuff that people have built a lot of solutions that they haven't actually tested work in the real world. So that's sort of my goal here, is to show that this is a real world working solution for CNCF software. Ideally by the end of January, where we will have been doing this for 6 months. And since initiatives aim to be time bounded, I'm going to start beating that drum as well.
Yeah, I think this is just one really fascinating with regards to where do the SBOMs exist and do they exist at all? One, and I think we've been working on answering some of that. It'd be great to find. I think I saw some project listed from a previous meeting of like, here's some potential candidates. Are
Yeah.
any of them? Do any of them have something to work with today? And what can we use there?
Yeah.
I'd really love to enumerate all of the options too. Not all of them, but list like what are the common patterns, right? Like I use Go Releaser. Go Releaser builds my SBOMs and puts them in my GitHub releases. Great. Like that's suboptimal. Somebody else is doing it with OCI. That's probably like, again, happy path for a couple different workflows. What else exists? Kubernetes is storing their SBOMs here. Like how can we enumerate those and capture those to build upon?
I mean, one thing that I did early on was I went to the docs for the graduated projects, and I just searched for SBOM. And that's where the list in these meeting notes came from. So yeah. I think maybe with one or two cases where someone said, I know we produce an SBOM, add it in. Like Kubernetes actually we know Kubernetes produces an SBOM. It's not actually like the SBOM stuff is not listed in the documentation. I think in toto might be the same way, but I'm not sure. One of the interesting things is that not all the projects are of the same type. So if you look at something like Argo CD or Knative, or Flux, or Cilium, those all mostly produce containers that run in your cluster.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at something like OTel, it produces libraries. And Kubernetes produces a combination of containers that run in your cluster and binaries. And so OCI refers are not necessarily appropriate for all of those cases. So
Yeah.
OCI refers are great for the cases where you produce container images. For the other stuff, we need some kind of different solution. Although you could also argue that for something like OTel producing libraries, that maybe your package manager can just figure that out and you don't actually need an SBOM published for those library packages. So I'm guessing that Matt isn't going to be able to make it today. But do we have Brent? It sounds like you've started looking at Guac ingest a little bit. Are you going to have time to continue that, or is that something that you're hoping that someone else will go poke at?
So this aligns to, I say some of the Zarf work. I'm probably going to do it through Zarf, but to be honest, it can be done with just Helm.
Sure.
But I think if we want a very like quick Kubernetes setup that doesn't maybe have the goodness of Matt's other stuff that he was going to add,
Yeah.
I was going to go that route and think about one, just stand up again the simple kind single node cluster, deploy
Yep.
Guac in some way, shape, or form, and then if there is a good instance of like somebody has already done the OCI version of this that we really would like,
Mm-hmm.
and is producing all of their artifacts, then we could probably try a quick like Guac plus OCI collector implementation and document that and show it. But yes, I think I'm gonna probably try to one deliver what I said I was going to deliver like 2 months ago, just for like the simple Zarf deployment, and then two, just look at Guac's Kubernetes quick start and try to bring that up to the same level as maybe the Compose quick start, and align that with something like, yes, this part with the OCI collector. If somebody finds a like organization or a project that is already doing the um, referrals to SBOM artifacts to their container images, toss that out at some point, and we could probably try to experiment with the OCI collector having a good example. Otherwise, we might just need to like instrument one.
Yeah. I know Knative does it using Co.
Hmm.
We also have the instructions for how to get those SBOMs on the website. So, yeah. I'm not sure if that uses refers or the old. I think it also at least uses the old funny tag names process.
Yeah, which should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that in terms of the software running on the cluster, loading something like Prometheus and Headlamp might make sense as just some additional weight of stuff to, and maybe Envoy Gateway or something like that.
Hmm.
But until I'm doing the work, y'all get to choose, and my opinions don't really matter. Okay. I don't have anything else. If no one else does, let's call it early and get some time to hack on whatever. See you.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.